Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. We're ready to get started here. Welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for June 3rd, 2024. The mayor is unable to attend and is excused, and we have Councilmember Goforth is joining us via Zoom. All other members of the council are present. Item 1 is to review the regular and special meeting agendas we have for tonight's council meeting. We looked at the agendas last week. Is there any other questions or updates from staff on either of the agendas? Councilmember Summers.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I wonder if we could have a brief presentation on item 6A. Received a question about community outreach, or more importantly, public notice. And I would like to just get a briefing on what exactly we're introducing today. This is an introduction, not a final vote.
All right. Got Rachel and Evan and Mary.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Council. We've got a couple of slides, and if it's okay, we won't go through the entire presentation, but we'll talk a little bit about the entitlement history. We'll start there, and then that'll lead us into the proposed zoning of what we're looking at today, and then some of the public engagement. So with the entitlement history, this project has a long history. Back in 1990, it was an annex, 626 acres. There was a rezoning in 2005 for 10 plus acres from AG to the M2, which is now our industrial. M2 used to be an industrial district. And then in July of 2006, we looked at another rezoning for 11 plus acres from AG again to the M1 with the PAD. This is now again that LI with the PAD. More recent history is in July of 2018, there was annex 27 plus acres of the subject property that was located on the west side of Signal Butte. And then around the same time, we had a minor GPA to change the land use designation from employment to neighborhood and rezone that property from AG again to GI with a council use permit. This allowed for the master plan community that is best known as the Destination at Gateway. In April of 2019, we had some modifications to the destination of Gateway PAD. In July of 2020, we had a minor general plan amendment that actually changed the land use designation on the property from neighborhood to mixed use activity, and that was rezoned the property, and I won't go through all of those districts, but again, we were looking at that council use permit. Primarily, the council use permit was to allow for residential development on a portion of the site that was zoned general commercial. In September of 2022, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended an approval of a rezoning with the council use permit, again, for some residential uses by a vote of 7-0. Can you go to the next slide, Evan? I think that this is probably one of the more important slides. This is the zoning comparison. On the left, we have the existing zoning. As you can see, a large portion of it is GC. There is some agricultural designation, that's the green parcels, some light industrial, which is the blue, and then the dark blue is a general industrial. On the right is what's proposed, and so what you see is most of it is being rezoned to general commercial with a light industrial on the right, on the east side of the parcel. It's important to note that the uses that are being proposed today could be developed in those GC areas and in that GI LI area with CUP. So there's some commercial uses, a large big box commercial use that is proposed in that LIPAD on the right-hand side. Those uses would be allowed in that GI with that CUP.
So just to be clear, the auto mall, apartments, commercial properties that are being proposed in this rezoning could proceed today in the existing zoning as it sits.
Vice Mayor, Council, that's correct. Again, the CUP would be required for that large big box commercial in either the general industrial or that light industrial zone.
But in the commercial zone, it could.
In the commercial zone, it would be permitted. That is correct.
Okay.
And then this is the slide I wanted to talk about with the citizen participation process, because there was a question about the public meeting that was held in May of 2022. So the state statute requires that we have a public notice in our general circulation paper prior to the public hearing. For this project, we require that a letter was mailed to the property owners within 500 feet. We typically encourage 1,000 feet for a project of this scale. The HOAs within a half mile of the site and the registered neighborhoods within 1 mile of the site were also notified. There was a sign that was posted on site, and then there was a neighborhood meeting in May of 2022. Again, the Planning and Zoning Board did make a decision and to recommend approval in September of 2022. So there was about a 5-month gap between that public meeting and that Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Since that recommendation, really what staff has been working on with the applicant is the development agreement that you'll hear at a different meeting, so we can't talk about it tonight. It did take some time because it was a little bit more complicated, but nothing has really changed since that Planning and Zoning Board recommendation in September of 2022.
If I may, Vice Mayor.
Go ahead.
So part of the concern from the constituent was that they never received a notice of this. And in looking at the map, so if you were to look at the material that was submitted on page, I think it's 23, here we go, 23, it provides examples of where, of all the lots that fall within the 1,000-foot property. And I know you can't see this on camera, but when you look at this more closely, back when this public meeting was held back in May of 2022, a lot of this area was dirt. There were no residential homes here. Even in Encore, there were a handful of homes that weren't complete. And the concern I would have, and I think some of what much of the community has, is that the public outreach was done before the public even had a chance to build a home and move in there. And now in that year and a half, even though this has already been, the zoning is already pretty much in place here, even though we're going to change the orientation of it, the concern is that they didn't have the opportunity to provide some input. And I know it's been a very long time that this has gone on, but having that input, people should have the ability to have that input. And I think this is something we need to take a look at a later date is when a process is going to go on for this long, that there needs to be more community outreach on this to allow for some of that input. But to that question, since the zoning exists and all these uses would be allowed anyway with some caveats, how much public input would the community get on a development agreement? That's really more of a legal between council management attorneys and the attorneys for the applicant. Would that be accurate?
So Vice Mayor and Councilmember Summers, the public can always provide comments on development agreements, and it's within the council's discretion to approve or not approve a development agreement. It falls within that sort of legislative type of concept, legislative approval. So it's within your discretion to approve a development agreement or not. So they could still come and provide whatever comments that they believe are appropriate in relationship to the development agreement. And while the development agreement's not on the agenda tonight, as you pointed out, it's just for an introduction tonight. It'll come back on the 17th. But I'll also point out for the public, we did discuss the development agreement back on, I think it was April 11th, because this development agreement's one in which we had to give an initial notice. And so there was an initial notice back on April 15th at that council meeting, and at the study session on April 11th, there was a presentation on the development agreement. So when we discuss the development agreement at the next council meeting, it'll actually be the second time that we've given a presentation or discussion to council about it.
Okay. It's still, though, that's a council meeting, not public notice or public outreach is really what I'm trying to discuss to get that in. The other comment that was made was that there was a comment here that staff did not receive any feedback from the public. That's accurate, yes. But there was feedback at the community meeting.
Correct. So
on page 21, there are several questions that are posed. And just to summarize, some of that has to do with where are certain aspects of this located. Multifamily, where the car is going to be. There's concern about lighting and the lighting that might come into this. Yep, light pollution, location of signing. Obviously, traffic is a concern too, and traffic flow within the community. So are we able, with the action that we're taking, what kind of items are we adding to this new agreement, the development agreement, and the slight change in the zoning that would help alleviate some of this?
So Vice Mayor, Councilmember Summers, what is before council today is a rezoning and a council use permit to allow for the large-scale commercial and that residential within the GC area. Each of these projects will come back for site plan review. Those specifics about the traffic, lighting, noise, all of those things will be looked at with each individual project. In addition, the applicant, as part of the development agreement, one of the requirements is to develop design guidelines. So that will also help us to make sure that we're addressing any of those major concerns that the public may have as it relates to noise, light, pollution, things like that.
Okay, so for what we can discuss today, you're gonna have authority over site plan review, which will take a look at traffic flows, that type of thing, where things are situated. We'll have design review that'll go through your office. And then there's some items in the development agreement that we're gonna talk about that can adjust possibly some of these comments that were made, correct? And that's what we can say. And that DA will come forward to council when?
At the next council meeting on the 17th.
On the 17th, so it's soon.
And some of these topics were discussed back on the April 11th meeting too.
Yeah, all those, yeah.
So, and then when will that be made public for people to look at?
As soon as,
As soon as
it posts in Legistar. So yeah, I'm not sure when it'll post. I mean, it'll probably
It's
be.
usually 2 or 3 days before, in advance, I think. So whenever, as soon as the staff is. done
Tuesday
reviewing.
before the Monday meeting, so it's almost a week ahead of time.
If we already talked about in April, is it not there already?
So
The
so
full
what was there is a
wasn't there?
PowerPoint with,
okay.
a PowerPoint with a lot of this detail
So,
is
yeah.
already uploaded.
Staff presented to council the concepts, the outline of the development agreement back in April.
But not the development agreement?
Well, it really didn't
But
change
for the
much.
public to look at.
It was an opportunity to get it out early,
Okay.
talk about it, because it has, there's a lot of issues for the city, especially regarding drainage and street construction and the timing of street construction. Remember, this development agreement also covers the reimbursement of
Public infrastructure.
public infrastructure. That's what we wanted to make sure
Yes.
the council understood also. And so what's included, what's considered a public project that could be reimbursed, and the time it's going to take to get this reimbursed. I'll remind the council that years ago, maybe before some of you were even on council, when we were working with ADOT on the extension of the 24 and recognizing Signal View here, we purposely and intentionally designated this area as where we wanted to bring car dealerships. We actually did a study and said, where could car dealerships go in Mesa? And realizing those opportunities were going to be limited. And so we actually had a consultant do the study because there's certain criteria by the dealerships and manufacturers. So both sides of the 24 on Signal View became the focus of our attention. But we did bring to the council, it is unique to do these reimbursement agreements, sales tax reimbursement agreements. But as we showed the council, the payback to the city is quick and significant for us over a short period of time.
So as a general question, we don't have any kind of time limitation on if something is approved and 2 years pass, doing it more
No.
citizen participation?
I mean,
Like, it's
some
just-
zoning will get approved and it'll be years before they develop out. In this case, we had to work on a lot of complicated issues regarding the development agreement. Again, because it included reimbursement of sales tax for the public
Right.
improvements. So we really had to work hard on figuring out which public improvements could we really associate with the addition of the new car dealerships, and how fast could that be reimbursed, and what was going to be included. There's significant drainage issues going through this property with a variety of other topics, and it just took a lot of engineering. It took a lot of back and forth negotiations to get to this point.
So citizen participation has to happen before the planning and zoning board meeting is
That's
what
the
that
zoning, that's the land
requirement
use,
is
so that's
for-
prescribed.
Right.
The development agreement usually is not just turning, it's like, who's gonna pay for the drainage? Who's gonna build out the street? Who's going to,
Right.
those kind of issues.
I'm just
So-
trying to remember in my 3.5 years on council, if we've had this come up before, where there's so much time that passes
Oh, yes,
between.
we've definitely had projects
that,
where the development
like 2
agreement takes.
years or more.
I don't know if 2-year development agreements, but
Well,
definitely.
2 years since the citizen participation, because I
Well,
do,
remember-
Scott's
remember-
point that he made.
There was
that
a
were-
previous, there is an existing development agreement that came with the original zoning that is in place today. This still was completed 2018? 2018, where we negotiated both a sales tax reimbursement, zoning, and a development agreement. What's happened since then, correct me if I'm wrong, the developer, property owner, has bought more property and also come back with new ideas about how to develop this out. So they acquired more property, and as a result, they came back to us and said, we need to, redo this again. We need to work on the zoning so this all comes as one package. So yes, 2018, but we went through the same process, the zoning, the development agreement, and council approved that. Then, after COVID, then we had, they come back and say, hey, we want to take that same agreement, we need to expand it, we bring some other elements in, but it's taking up more property, and we were encouraged because it was adding more commercial development for us.
So I guess the point is, if something like this arises, which is not going to happen that much in our city, but if new neighborhoods have been built in the meantime, are we saying too bad, so sad? Like we don't give a new neighborhood
It's
that's
hard to give
adjacent
notice to a
it?
property owner that doesn't exist at that time we're doing the
Exactly.
zoning.
No, that's obviously, but so if in the last 2 years there have been houses built that are adjacent, we just don't worry about that?
It's just, I don't know how we could physically track those. I mean, I guess we could try, but it just, it's the zoning I don't know that's in question here, I guess. I
Yeah.
think it's the,
I think it would have been nice to have another public meeting. The caveat here, of course, being that all of the uses that are proposed for this site with the change in zoning were already approved under the previous zoning. It's just changing what was already there. I think more of this conversation, just to allay some of the fears in the community about, noise and light, those types of things, is going to be part of the discussion on the development agreement, because I did pay attention to that. So I think we'll have that kind of conversation here in a week or so. So stay tuned. But there are some opportunities for the public still to get engaged. I just feel it would have been nice, given the length that we would have required them to reach out, just to have a kind of a follow-up meeting with folks, because there is so much here in single-family homes that they're not, they weren't included in the original because they just didn't exist at the time. So, and I think that's just a policy change on our part. Thank you so much. Glad you got to speak. What's up?
All right. Any other items?
Vice Mayor and Council, if I
Yeah.
could, there's one item, just it's a typographical issue. It's on agenda item 5C. And I'm just, for the record, I just want you, the resolution number that's identified on the agenda is incorrect. The correct number is 12,212, 12212. Just, we're going to correct that in Legistar. The correct resolution number will be on if it passes tonight, the correct resolution number will be placed on the resolution for your signature tonight. And so we'll correct the record. I just wanted to make it a part of the record that we're going to make that change on the agenda.
All right,
Thanks, Vice Mayor.
sounds good. Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Goforth?
No, thank you.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the list of current events and conferences attended. Council members, any items to share? Nothing? Nothing, Julie? Oh, Councilmember Duff.
I don't have anything to share. It was a quiet weekend. It was kind of weird. I kept on thinking, what happened to my calendar? But it was a quiet weekend. But since we're in June, I just want to say happy Pride Month. In June, we celebrate the LGBTQ plus community's vibrant history and ongoing fight for equality. So I'll just add that. Thank you.
And we'll have a proclamation upstairs acknowledging Pride Month, so. All right, anything else? Nothing? All right. Mr. Brady, share of future meetings.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a reminder, we do have a study session this Thursday, June 6th. We will not have, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Got very emotional about that last one.
We're emotional about the meetings coming up.
Yes, someone has to put it there. June 13th falls during the time of the League of Cities, or, is that right? Or the National League of Cities, sorry, National League of Cities Conference. So we've already canceled that study session as well as the one on the 20th. So what that means is there will not be a study session prior to the June 17th council agenda. So we're going to give you, you're going to have before Thursday our preliminary agenda for the 17th. And we're already planning on doing presentations for items that are on the 17th on the 6th. So I know we're getting a little ahead of you, but that's just because we're not meeting again from the 6th until the 17th, but it'll be a Monday. So we will have the opportunity to review the development agreement. We have some items related to Visit Mesa, and there's one other I can't remember right now, but those will be on the 17th, but the Idea Museum naming rights. So anyway, don't be too shocked if you see, and it may not have all the links to that 17th agenda because we're still building it out. We want to at least give you an outline of that agenda since it's going to be so long before. We're not going to meet before the Monday council meeting.
And if we needed to, though, we could talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Call staff and.
No, but the Monday before the council.
Oh, sure.
We would
But
have
like
that
we're doing
study
now.
session.
Absolutely,
Yes, so
absolutely,
we would
yeah.
have a chance to talk.
Right, absolutely. But so you'll see that. That's not typically when the agenda, it may not have all the backup information. It'll just, but we'll try to do the best we can before this Thursday.
All right, sounds good. Well, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilmember Dove, second by Councilmember Spilsbury. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. See you upstairs.